Well, welcome to
Alrighty.
the Suicide Monk, and my name is Britton, and I am your host. Today we're going to be speaking to Jordan, and she's going to be giving us a rundown on her life. Do you want to tell me about a little bit about your childhood, what you grew up with, and just kind of go from there and just lay it out?
Yeah, I think the talking about my childhood is going to be the roughest part.
Okay.
So I hate crying. I hate getting emotional, but I
Well, you're
think
okay.
uh, once I get past this part, I'll be able to probably better articulate
Sure.
everything and be a little more, not so socially awkward. But yeah, I was born and I have a sister who's about 5 years older than I am. And I was born with two involved parents, mom and a dad. And of course, too, if you feel like I need to backtrack at all or like clarify, feel free. But some of my earliest memories that I remember have to do with my parents arguing. And, it was like 4 and 5 when your memories kind of start
Hmm.
to stick a little. And when my sister was born, apparently my dad was pretty much normal, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, or at least was like a decent husband and father. And when I was born, maybe 2, 3 years after that, he just went downhill with a lot of things, which I'll get into. But my earliest memories weren't happy. Um, when I started forming memories, it was my parents arguing, my dad in and out of my life, and um, a mom who is such a wonderful woman over the past 10 years. But growing up, I think she also had to deal with my dad being him and try to keep a family together and also trying to like take care of him. And so there's a lot of yelling and instability. So some of my earliest memories besides yelling and arguing, um, I don't remember how old I was, maybe I would say between 6 and 8. I watched my dad hit my mom. And that was just sort of the keystone of my life. And so
Sure.
um, watching him hit her, and they didn't know that I saw. There was a few other points where, uh, I was in my room or my sister's room, and my dad came in, and my sister had like a stained glass thing, like hanging from her door, and he broke it because he pushed her and they were fighting. Um, and I don't know. This is where I kind of get stuck in my story because it's hard to talk about, but um, just that led me to being a very anxious kid. And it led me to being very hard on myself because I didn't want to be another burden to my parents. Um, and so I don't know. I might need your help keeping going here because
So,
again, I kind of get stuck here.
what do you mean? You mean to both your parents, or more focused at your father?
It
Why do you say
didn't.
burden?
I didn't want to be another source of stress.
Okay.
I didn't want them to
Okay.
have to worry about me. Um, yeah. But with my
But you're a kid.
parents, yeah. But I'm a kid, but I think from a very early time, I didn't know that I was a kid.
Mm.
Um, so my parents were arguing all the time. My dad was in and out. My dad eventually got into gambling and drugs. And again, was very in and out. He gambled my mom's money away, didn't pay child support. And it was just a constant source of what is he going to do next? Is he going to
So
show up? Yeah.
when did they get divorced?
I don't know officially. I want to say
How old were you when the split
probably,
happened?
yeah, I would say they probably at least separated probably I was around 6. I'd say probably around 8 or 9. Yeah, 8 or 9 is when they probably officially divorced.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so
Um,
you caught the very beginnings, like you had at least 2 or 3 years there of heavy physical abuse that you witnessed.
Yeah. And it's tough for me to talk about my story because I witnessed a lot, but not a lot happened to me, which doesn't necessarily mean my story is any more invalid compared,
Right.
like obviously you went through hell when I watched your video. Did I experience even a taste of that? Probably not. Um, but
Well,
I, yeah,
there's no shame for that. That people always shame
no,
themselves because it's not as bad, but
yeah,
our story is as bad as it affects us. And
sure.
those like I've because of what I'm doing, the people I talk to, we're all in the same boat. From
Yeah,
then we get there through different
uh,
paths, and
sure.
some not near as harsh, but the detriment is the same. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. But I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to reach out because, and again, once I, talk about more, you'll learn more about me, but I'm the type of person that if you talk to me or you learn about me, you would never guess. Like
right,
objectively, I have a good job, I have a good family. Um, I'm married, I have 2 stepkids. Like you see my life and it's like, how could she feel like that? Like on the outside, it seems like I have it all. But on the inside, I am not. I have been internally struggling since I was probably around that 5, 6-year-old mark. So I part of the reason I wanted to share is to show people like, and I'm probably not wording this very eloquently, but someone can seem like they're okay. Someone can seem like they have a very good life, but they could be really struggling.
right.
So
Tormented.
torment, that's a better word. Yeah, tormented, which I would say I am. And so I want to people to know that you can see a seemingly healthy person, adult, and inside they're not okay. And to just know that it doesn't matter what walk of life you're on, what you've been through. But yes, people have their own stories, but I think it's important to know, yeah, that they may seem okay and they're not, and to just not judge. Or if you hear the word suicide, don't freak out. Like,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the worst thing, and it
Yeah.
just makes people clam up even more.
I
Um,
laugh at that because
yeah.
I deal with it constantly.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
I'm
I'm not
sure.
laughing at you for sure. It's
No,
like
I know you're I
it's
know I
it's tiresome
yeah.
actually. It's very tiresome. And you just don't
Yeah.
know what to do with it. It's just like almost um you just don't know how to deal with it. I mean, you just
Yeah, you don't, and that's why I just don't tell people unless they get it. Like, people like you, someone like my therapist, my husband, who, of course, he doesn't get it, but he's so
right.
we're so close that he understands, and so,
Yeah. And thank God
prob
they don't get it.
yeah.
Thank God they don't get it.
Honestly, like, I think I need people like my husband that don't get it, so one,
Yeah.
that he can learn to be more sympathetic and empathetic, but two, just to learn, like, not everything has to be this wide-eyed, like, insane deal. It could just be a feeling like we experience when we're angry or sad.
Yeah.
Just wanting to kinda die can also be sort of, not, I won't say, I don't know if normal is the right word, but just kinda like, "Hey, I'm having these really shitty thoughts,
Yeah.
and this is how I feel," and, um, yeah, just want people to learn that it doesn't have to be this extreme thing.
Right. Right.
It
And
could
that's what they don't
just.
understand. It's the little things that actually, and sometimes it's the little things that just send you over the edge. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
the wall's already built, so
Right.
it doesn't take much a lot of
No,
times.
yeah, absolutely.
It's almost like somebody like for me, I guess the best way to relate that is when I get angry, when I get frustrated, I drop my keys and I can't pick them up 3 different times because I'm looking somewhere else, and I get frustrated, and that frustration turns instantly to anger, rage, bad, self depre dec dep depre
Deprecation.
degradation. Um,
Yeah.
and it's that is the same thing as what somebody would experience, but I experienced that with suicide, like, it's almost instant. It
Mm.
builds really quick is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I know that well, unfortunately.
yeah.
Um,
So
Yeah.
back to your
Mhm.
your mom and dad have split. He's been
Yeah.
abusive. You've
Yeah.
witnessed this.
A lot of witnessing. I have very jaded memories of if I got abused, not emotionally, but physically. I don't remember necessarily either of my parents hitting me, but kind of getting like, you know, I don't know, like grabbing. I feel like that
Mhm.
has definitely happened to me. But I have very again, this is one of the things I don't know if it actually happened or my brain blocked it out, but I don't know if I was
Sure.
sexually abused by my sister. I really don't know. I have very jaded thoughts or like memories of being naked and her on top of me, but I don't know what happened.
Okay.
So,
That's fair. That's fair.
yeah, and it's one of those things I never really dwelled on because I really don't know.
Right.
I'd have to go back in
Yep.
time. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but just so much screaming, yelling, arguing, just being in a constant state of stress, panic. Don't get in the way. Don't be a burden. Don't add something to, you know, my parents' stress. Even
Sure.
though my dad was a piece of shit, don't do that. Um, and my sister and I were not close. We're about 5 years apart, and we're very, very different people. And and she was a little bit more. I kind of learned through her to be a little bit more guarded and to be kind of to myself. Um, so it was never. She was never someone I could talk about with, these things with. She was never. I don't remember her asking me like, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" Like I don't. I kind of dealt with it by myself
Sure.
for
Yeah.
for a long time, and I still do to an extent. Um, but my mom still is, but back then was very much a people pleaser, wanting everything to seem okay or be okay. So with my dad, even though he was in and out, it was like if he was good, she wanted me to have contact with him. She wanted me to be around him. He wanted him to be around us, and just not have to deal with his, just all my father's bullshit. Probably not. Honestly, he's very manipulative. So I'm sure she just didn't want to deal with him being the way that he is and forcing us to see him or feel guilted. She just wanted to just have it be, you know,
Yeah.
try, route of least resistance, path of least resistance, I guess. I
Sure.
guess.
Yeah.
So uh, that's the thing about my story is there's a lot. There was like these major things that happened, like I told you about, and that's the thing is after that, 8 years oldish, those things kind of stopped to an extent. But the unhealthy patterns and behaviors I developed because of that, I think has led me down this path that I'm at today, with struggling with anxiety and depression and suicide. So my parents yelled a lot. They screamed at each other. I watched them be in each other's faces, screaming, pushing, saying horrible things, like, let's have this be a World War III, or, go ahead, hit me. Um, that shit sticks with you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And, um, again, my dad was gambling. He was in and out of the house. He was very manipulative. He's a good talker. He always likes to make himself seem like a better person than he actually is. And so throughout my life, at least after that 8 years old, it was kind of like I saw my dad sometimes, but sometimes I didn't because he was on some type of drug or he was gambling. And uh, just didn't have like a consistent father figure in my life. Um, so with him being in and out, and again, me kind of becoming I was this really free spirited kid. I was that kid that was climbing on everybody and anything. I was a fucking monkey and I had so much life in me. I was so happy. And I was such a good kid. My mom always talks about how good of a baby I was, how good of a toddler I was. And I feel like after those times when I, between like 5, 6, 7 years old, I lost that.
I
I don't
understand
I
that.
don't I don't think I got it back. Um So I turned into this kid that wanted just to please everybody, not be in the way. But it also, I think, kind of turned into me being a perfectionist as a kid. Um, I was really involved in gymnastics. That gymnastics was my, like the gym there was my home away from home. That was my second home. I was very good at it. I excelled at it. And me being a perfectionist and gymnastics being a very perfectionistic driven sport,
Yeah.
you're adding fuel to the fire of that tendency. And so I think to me as a kid, it's like, okay, I can't escape my parents. I can't escape my home, whether my dad is there or not, but I can control the type of athlete that I am. Um, and I was very, very hard on myself as a gymnast. And that perfectionistic tendency is just sort of exploded through my life. But again, that was my release. That was my way to, I don't think at the time I knew it was coping, but in a way it was for me to cope.
Sure.
Um, so, my mom was my mom, and she, was like, if you don't hold, like in gymnastics on the beam, like at the level I was at, like a little 5 at the time, I don't know. You're on the balance beam, the little 4-inch thing,
Sure.
4-inch wide. And so on the dismount, I had to like hold a handstand for 3 seconds, and then I could dismount. Unless, like, if I did less than 3 seconds, I got a deduction. My mom was like, if you don't hold this for 3 seconds, like I'm pulling you out of gymnastics. Like just these little things of like
Extremes.
extremes, like you have to be more perfect. You have to do this. Or because my dad, didn't pay my mom, I would hear things like, Jordan, like, I don't know if I can keep you in gymnastics because your dad's not paying me.
Yeah.
And so just, yeah, things like that. But again, those major things happen, and then it developed into these little things like at the time. And I didn't know this, I didn't realize the extent of it at the time, but for example, like the way my gymnastics gym was set up, there are these almost floor to ceiling windows, like very tall windows that you could see, like if you're on the beam or the trampoline, you could see the cars, pulling in to the gym, or at least turning onto the street to go to the
Sure.
gym.
Yeah.
And my dad sometimes would pick me up. And if it was around the time that my practice is soon going to end, and I knew my dad was picking up, I'd have this panic toward the end of practice. Like, is he going to come? Is he going to be there? And I didn't realize at the time I was having abandonment problems because my dad
Yeah.
being so wishy-washy in and out, it turned into just a simple practice. Is my dad even going to pick me up?
Right.
And in reality, look, like if I could have told my younger self, like of course someone's going to pick you up. Like if for some reason your dad didn't, my mom would have.
Right. Right.
But as a kid, you're like, oh my God, they're not there. Like, did he leave again? Like, what did I do? Like, I'm just going to be stranded here. I'm going to be left again. And so little things like that throughout my life just kept folding. So when I was in 3rd grade, so I was 9, I remember when the bell rang, if I couldn't leave immediately, I would start crying. And I don't remember a teacher. I remember, teacher like, why are you crying? I didn't know I was crying.
You
But,
didn't know.
I didn't know. I was just like, what the, it's, as school got out like at 2:50, and it's, if I'm not out by like 2:51, 2:52, like I am in tears.
Okay.
And I don't remember, again, if someone could have, but I don't remember. I don't know if a teacher, mentioned that to my mom. If my mom talked to me about it, I don't know.
Sure.
But it happened all the fucking time. And again, when you're a kid, you're just like, oh, I'm crying. Like, what the heck? But I remember, again, I was in that state of panic of, am I being left again? Is someone going to leave without me? Am I going to be left behind again or not thought of again? And so I remember, like, when I would finally leave the classroom, and I would see my mom in her car at the pickup line, there was just this massive relief. But yeah, she would come in the pickup line, and I would see her, and I would get this massive relief. Like, okay, I'm not going to be left behind again. And again, it was probably only 3 minutes after school. Like, so many, so many kids linger around school after school, like whatever, like they're not worried about it. Like, oh yeah, my
Sure.
parents going to be here, whatever. And I didn't have that. I was just constantly like, oh my God, like, am I going to be picked up? Are they going to leave me? And that abandonment has carried with me through so many years. And so I eventually grew out of that, but again, the tendencies still stay the same. The fears still stay the same. But if anything, as I got older and more aware, it just grew. Um, so
What do you
yeah,
mean it grew? Like the
the feelings of anxiety, panic just
so
grew the
those
more I became aware.
okay, but as an adult now that you're not being abandoned and all that, so
Hmm.
it's almost like and you kind of touched on that a little bit here. Is those it's really the residual effect of
Hmm.
learned behavior in your youth, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yeah, it was a learned behavior, just like when, my parents were screaming at each other and I didn't want to be in the way, I hid in my room.
Yeah,
And, when I got to high school, college, after college, even to now, I tend to hide in my room. I tend to just like to be alone in my room because I'm away from everybody, especially if
right,
I'm not doing well. And so it's not just this innocent, oh, I just like to hang out in my room. It's like
right.
it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And um uh, so yeah, I mean that was when I was 9. Again, I'd cry. I don't know if it was just 9, but just around that time, like anytime I didn't see a parent or know what was going on, I would get upset. So I remember like my mom's mom is an Italian Catholic family, and before my grandmother passed away when I was about 10, I think. My mom sometimes would bring us to a Catholic church, and I would, go to like a kids group, whatever, and my mom would go to mass sometimes for service. And I remember it was my first time, one of my first couple times being in the group, and I started crying because she was going to leave me, and I I wanted to know where she was going to be at all times. And so when she left me, I hated that. But eventually I was okay. She was able to leave me. But I remember like it was towards the end of the group or the service, whatever, and I'm panicking because I don't know where my mom is. And I remember like through the doors you could see, everyone at the mass, and I could see her like in the corner, like on the aisle. And I'm this breathing this sigh of relief, like, oh my God, okay, I'm not going to be abandoned. But there's just multiple instances of that fear. Like, for example, we're at my sister's soccer tournament, and um, parents and kids are, leaving, and I can't find my mom, and I'm freaking the fuck out, and I'm about to cry because people are driving away, and I don't know where she is. Now, in reality, would she have left without me? Of course, she wouldn't fucking leave without me.
Right.
Yeah, right? She's not gonna leave
But
her kid behind.
yeah, but sometimes logic doesn't overthrow the mind.
Yeah, when you're a
Yeah.
kid, you can't think of shit like that. You just know what you're feeling, and it's a big
Right.
feeling. And uh yeah, of course mom's gonna fucking leave, but the kid, you're like, oh my God, it's the same thing. And so just like the church service and a soccer tournament and other like there I had a gymnastics competition, and it was in a different part of California, and I had to be separated from her because I had to go, be with my team, warm up, whatever, and I had to leave her, and I was scared I wasn't gonna see her ever again. And again, my mom would never do that, but again, it's just these things of my dad leaving, I don't know when he's coming back. And again, I didn't have an adult to tell me in a kid version, like, "Hey, this is what's going on.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Are you you're okay?" And kid can only answer so much, but at the same time, it's like I wish someone would have explained, like, "This is what's happening. I'm
Yep.
sorry. What do you need? Like, what can I do for you? Or do you want to talk?" Or I wish just someone would have explained, like, do you still want to see your dad? Do you like being around him? Like, I wish I had those options as a kid.
Right.
Because my mom, again, at the time was just such a people pleaser. And I think when her mom was still alive, she needed to maybe prove like she didn't make a massive mistake because my grandma didn't like him. And so I just wish I had that. And I'm wondering now if I did have that, would I still be like how I am today? And I obviously can't dwell on that, but I would have made so many healthier decisions throughout my life if someone just at least would have talked to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I've thought of the same thing. And I have many instances as you do, that if an adult would have just been an adult
Mhm.
and given a shit for a moment, it could
Yeah,
have changed the direction.
totally. And I don't, if for some reason my mom finds this and, I don't think she will, but just for some reason, like I want her to know it wasn't her fault. Like
Right.
and that's the thing is, obviously when you're a kid and you see adults, it's like you assume they just have it figured out,
Yep.
or they should know what to do. And as a step parent now, it's like, I don't have anything fucking figured out. Like
Right.
I'm a fucking mess too, just a little bit more, my brain's just a little bit more developed. And so I don't blame my mom. I don't, sorry, Holly. I think my mom was also just an adult trying to figure her life out.
Sure.
She was just trying to she was
Yeah.
just trying to get through her day. She was
Yep.
just trying to survive the best way she knew how. And my mom's mom did not do a good job of raising her either. My mom was also in a cycle that I don't think totally broke out of for a long time. But she was just trying to do the best she could. And so I do not blame her. I'm not, I don't resent her, but um, she was just trying to survive. And so you can't fault parents for that because she is such a good person. She has such a big heart. But at the time, I wish I just had, and I think it's okay to say, I wish I had someone, whether it was my sister or somebody else, to just be like, talk to me.
Right.
Even if I couldn't convey what was happening or what I was feeling or realizing, hey, feeling panic all the time is not normal for, 8, 9-year-old kid. Um, I just wish someone was there and I didn't. Um, so, that's what, 9, 10 years old. Yeah.
So what's your relationship with your mom like now?
It's great. I mean, there's definitely some boundaries that or not boundary. I don't even know if boundaries is the right word. I'm a little closed off from her. My mom didn't feel like she could talk to her mom. And I think my mom has tried to not be like that. I think she wants to be like, wants her kids to be able to talk to her. But my mom, it's hard because she will do anything for either of her kids. Like for people she loves, she will do more than what's asked of her, and not even care. She just wants to. She's such a sweet and giving person. But her faults lie where it's hard for her to, I think, empathize or sympathize with people.
Mm.
So, for example, if someone's going through something, I don't know, whether it's a family member or someone we know mutually, she'll be like, well, I don't understand. Like, if someone's, an alcoholic or a drug addict or, dies by suicide, it's like, why would someone ever do that? I don't understand. Just kind
Right.
of this older generational thinking.
Yep.
And we know, you and I know that it's kind of like sometimes there are no answers. Sometimes just people are dealing with rough shit or if they develop rough habits. And,
Mhm.
there's sometimes there isn't a reason. It just happens. And she just never really developed that understanding or sympathy. So I think for me, I don't think she is even has a clue that I'm depressed, let alone suicidal. I mean, she has no idea that I go to therapy. I don't even think she knows I'm on medication. Like, so it's like I am open with her to an extent, but there are things I will not discuss with her ever for fear of not rejection, but just her not understanding or her being like overly worried, which is what she would be, she wouldn't know how to talk about it. I think you're right. She would walk along with me. She may not understand, but I think she would try. But the thing about her is she didn't start to grow as a person until she met my stepdad. And so I'm 30 now, and she met him when I was 14. And she's made leaps and bounds in her growth as a person and as a parent. And by fear of bringing that up with her, it's going back so many years that I don't want her to feel guilty. I don't want her to feel like, this is her fault. I don't want her to feel like she was a bad mom. And so she's not. But, when you dig up all these years in the past, it hurts you. And then, you're just reopening, you're putting salt in the wound, or you're reopening that wound and it's hard. And just even talking about this with you, and we're at how many minutes in and I'm already crying 3 times. Like, I don't think I could get through it with her. And I don't think she could listen. I don't know if she could listen because it would hurt her.
But maybe the initial approach is not to tell her about her role in that. Maybe
Sure.
maybe that is something that she'll inquire about later on down the road as you're able to talk more about your story with her, and you navigate that. Because I mean, and maybe this is an avenue where you're like, hey, Britton, can you send me that,
Mm,
and I can give you that, and she can, so your articulation is true in
yeah.
nature, but that hard stuff but maybe it's something you watch together, maybe it's something she navigates alone initially. I don't know what, again,
Yeah.
you have to be the judge of that, but man, if I had an advocate, especially a parent,
Yeah.
I would try to navigate that in my favor, especially feeling that detriment, because um especially with a mother, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's up to you. I'm not pushing you, but
No, I know. I
just a
know.
suggestion. So
Yeah, totally. And I do think one day I'll get there.
yeah, I hope
But I
so.
think I hope so too. I do. I feel hopeful that I can have at least start that conversation with her. Um, but I'm proud of how far she's come and what she's had to endure. And, um, it's dealing with, for anybody dealing with that is not easy, but she chose to still put us first. Again, in the best way she knew how.
Mhm.
Just like me as a step parent, am I making wrong decisions all the time? Absolutely. And I'm just doing the best that I can. And so is she.
Yeah.
Um, so one day I think so. Just, um, I would love not to actively be wanting to die.
Right.
Telling her that.
Right.
So we'll see how well, if how well I improve. But yeah, I mean, so that's what, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. So um it's kind of just same shit, different day. Like sometimes my dad's in my life, sometimes he's not, you know,
Still.
sometimes he's on the street, sometimes he's not. There were a couple times he had an apartment, that never worked out. And
Sure.
so just I don't know. Those years were just kind of, I don't want to say uneventful. It's just, again, it's just these small habits that developed on the way where they kept growing. So um when I was 12, I left gymnastics because there was coaching changes. I kind of fell out of love for the sport. No one was anything's fault, but um as you get older, obviously other things start developing. So yes, I still have this anxiety and this panic, but as I get older, I think because of my dad, and this sounds so cliche to say it, but this is, again, it doesn't mean that it's invalidating for anybody going through it, but like I wanted to be around boys constantly. I wanted to flirt with them. I wanted them to like me. I was always interested in a boy, and I think, like, just like if kids are sexually abused, sometimes they will kind of do that to other kids.
Right. Yeah.
Because as a and so for me, it's like my dad was so in and out, so unstable that I looked for that type of attention from somebody else.
Mm.
And so I just remember having vague memories in kindergarten of like a little boy rubbing my back. Like, why the fuck would anybody do that? Like,
Yeah.
what? That's not, if weird shit happens all the time when you're a kid, kids are fucking weird, but just these consistent patterns of wanting to be around a boy, wanting to kiss a boy, wanting them to touch me. That seems to go a little bit further, I think. And so even like in elementary school, I'm talking to my friends like, "Oh, I like this boy." And they're like, "Jory, you're such sorry." They're like, "Jordan, you're such a flirt. Like you always talk about boys." And it just so I think I look for boys as a way to help, I guess, deal with or get some sort of attention. And so I guess at this point, I'm in middle school and same shit, different day. I have like a new boyfriend every month, it seems like.
Mm.
Of course, they're just not serious things, but again, I'm seeking that out. I'm thinking about that.
Right.
And what's funny is my husband, we actually we dated in 6th grade. And I don't remember for how long. I don't remember how we met, but um one of those people just so happened to be my now husband, but um
How long you been married?
um it'll be next month will be 2 years.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a good one. I mean, he didn't have the best life, didn't hand it to him very well either.
Right.
And I think he, acted out with a lot of anger, uh very poor choice of words to his parents and other people, um always getting into trouble with, legally. And but just kind of like me, we sort of somehow not figured out very well, but we at least got our shit together for the most part.
Right.
We kind of, when we reconnected, we had always stayed friends throughout, you know, middle school, high school, college, whatever, beyond that. But when we reconnected 5, 6 years ago at this point, I was still in the trenches of figuring out what's going on with me and
Mm.
learning about myself. And it takes a really strong person to walk along that with you and not give up
Yes.
on you. Uh, so when we got together romantically, not just friends, he really helped me to learn that, well, help me identify things that were not healthy that I need to improve, but two, just when the right people come along, they'll stay.
Yeah.
And you won't have to force them. You won't have to manipulate them. They'll just stay because they love you.
Yeah.
And that's my husband. And he is my best friend. He's my best friend first, and then he's my husband. And I am very, very fortunate. If I didn't have him, I don't know. And I don't say that in like, oh, I need him way, like if I would die without him, but like not like a needy way, but like a true bond.
Right.
Um, yeah, he's so I'm proud of him just like he's proud of me. And that's special. But going back to, like middle school again, just same shit, like always having a boyfriend, um, not having a stable male figure in my life. I'm not a very nice person to my friends back in middle school. I was an asshole. And again, that sucks because growing up, I was such a sweet kid. What my mom told me. So sweet and so happy. And I think a lot of the shit that I went through made me kind of a closeted angry person in the sense of like, you know, I don't know how to talk to people in a loving way or in an uplifting way. I'm very derogatory and I didn't even know it. Um, and I was just mean and I bullied people because that's what other people did. And I'm not proud of that at all. But I think I had so few friends that the friends I did have, I just wanted to fit in. So if they were bullying a girl, AIM was our thing back in the day. And so, like, if girls were bullying a girl in my class on AIM, I joined in because I didn't know. Um, and it's not an excuse at all. It's
No,
not.
I
It's
know. I
just,
know it's not.
I know. I just always want to be clear. Like, I just did what everybody else did because again, I didn't have much clear parental direction. So I kind of had to just follow everybody's lead.
Right.
And so when you're, 12 and it's a really hard age and you're in a new, middle school, it's really fucking hard. And you make really shitty decisions. And I did, unfortunately. I was a bully. I always had a boyfriend and, which isn't bad, but I was seeking that out constantly. I wasn't just okay being who I was.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So
um,
ways to figure out
yeah.
how to cover up your pain. Is that,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
It was like, all right, this girl in my classes, she was a little bit odd, a little bit strange, but she was just a little bit different. And again, when you're that age, everyone's different. Everyone's trying to figure themselves out, but some
Everybody
people,
else. Yeah.
everybody is. But again, just guys telling, like, I remember like on AM, these fucking group chats, like telling her to kill herself. And I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, fuck. Like, I wish, and no parent ever found that online. You know, I wish I wish my mom did.
Hmm.
I wish
Yeah.
she found that, and I wish, as obviously as shitty as that would have been for a 12, 13-year-old, that would have maybe helped open the door to why I'm doing those things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
or at least just help make some other innocent kid less miserable. Um, so I had a lot of those habits again with boys, being mean to my friends, saying really rude things, not, wanting more attention, but not being able to give that same love and attention back. I think like I wanted people to be there for me, but it was really hard for me to be there for them. Um,
Do you
it
think
just
that's
wasn't,
abnormal
yeah.
for youth?
I think so. I think so. I do. I do feel like to an extent, yeah, probably. But again, being told I was a sweet kid that was very thoughtful and happy, and maybe I didn't have to be one of those more of those people. Maybe I could have been someone that would have known more right from wrong at an earlier age. Maybe, I don't know. That also could just be me being very hard on myself.
Probably.
Probably it's the story of my life, but
I think that it's almost inevitable when you're on this road right here that we're on, is to it's hard to be easy on yourself. It's very
yeah,
easy to be hard on yourself. So, and that
definitely.
our language is built around that a lot of times, and we don't even see it a lot of times. But
Yeah.
that's usually that language is very embedded. So
Hmm.
even we're like, I'm not really being hard. I'm just like spitting facts. We're actually still being hard on ourselves. That's what I understand.
Hmm.
That's what people tell me. I'm just
Hmm.
like, but it's true.
Yeah.
How, you know,
Yeah, it's true. I know. And so that's where it's tough. It's like I tell my story and it's like it's from like from your point of view and a third party, it's kind of like you're being too hard on yourself. But to me, it's like I just wish I had a little bit more clear of right and wrong, or just not just I just wish I wasn't going through life feeling blind. That's all.
sure. Yeah.
Um I don't blame myself. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't blame myself. I don't look back at how I was and I'm just like disappointed, but I feel sad for that little girl that was 12 and, was part of the bullying and but also didn't have a lot of friends. But again, I you looked at me and I was a seemingly normal kid. And so I didn't get picked on, but I was part of it, and I'm sad for that girl that did that to other people.
Do you feel shame from that?
Yeah, not just that experience, but even, like, in high school with my friends, like, again, I had a really awesome group of friends starting, like, sophomore, junior year of high school, and, I didn't give them what they deserved. I wasn't as present or involved. I made it more about me, and I do feel shame that I could have been a better friend, especially with how again, when you're in any part of school, finding really good solid friends is tough, and once you find them, like, you wanna hold on to that, and I finally
Right.
had that, and I didn't realize it, and I wish I was just a better friend. I was more I don't know, but it's hard because I didn't realize what I was going through, and that was just I didn't know. I really didn't know how to be a good friend. I think my friends had solid parents, both loving father and a mother, like, great supportive siblings, and had that just figured out a little bit better of how to treat people in general, like,
Sure.
just the foundations, right? And I
Yep.
think I didn't have that, and so I feel shame, but I don't necessarily blame myself, but I'm just
I get
sad.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. That again, we're back to a residual effect. Even though I know that logically I'm a kid and I did these things and I should not, like, they don't define me anymore. I still feel those residual effects of that shame of the time I hit the kid in the head or pushed the girl down the ravine or was just I cried in class all day, just those shameful moments tend to I don't know how to get rid of those. I know they're not true as far as who I am now. They've actually shaped me into this person, this compassionate, empathetic person, but they still affect me on a
Yeah.
regular basis. And like that abandonment, I feel that all the time. I feel it every day almost. But I know that it's okay to be alone. It's okay to not have somebody in proximity. It's okay not to be dependent on somebody because I have access to people
Yeah.
and I nurture those relationships. So again, they're just residual effects, and I don't know what to do with those at this point. So, because sometimes they're just really intense.
If you figure it out, let me know.
I
If
will,
you figure it out, you'll be a fucking millionaire
right?
because I think
So,
it's just
what was?
ingrained in us.
Yeah, well, when I think it's early trauma as a child. It really like those things that you should be doing, experiencing, you're not.
Yeah.
And the things that are happening in the home tend to haunt you outside of the home, even when you're with somebody else, because you're learning behaviors that don't apply to children. They don't.
Yeah. Right.
And you're bringing that into a friend's home and they can't figure you out, or, some kids get really violent or pushy or sexually abusive. And and all they're doing is acting out the negative shit that is impacting their life. At least that's my experience. I don't know if that's all across the board, but I would say that's pretty good,
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um,
So what
yeah,
was high
like
school like for you? You
I
quit just gymnastics. Goodness gracious.
I don't know,
Wow.
that's okay. Ah, yeah, I stopped at, like, 12 or so. I got started with, cheerleading, and,
Okay.
um, I made really good friends through there. I would say at the time, like, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, so I started at middle school, and so in the high school, again, I was really good at, like, the gymnastics stuff, the stunting, so, I mean, even as a freshman, I was on varsity, which is not
Sure.
common at all, but
Right.
that's just how competitive I was, how perfectionistic driven I was, and Through cheer, I finally made really good friends, but I didn't love myself. I, again, still used boys as a way to, that's just what I sought out. And so I remember freshman year, one of my friends, I was talking about yet another boy that I was like talking to or flirting with or whatever the fuck you do at 14. I don't know. Um, and she's just like, stop. You need to stop talking about them all the fucking time.
Mhm.
And in a way that was like, it was good because I needed that because I probably didn't realize like how, I'm sure, annoying it was and old it was. But again, at the same time, I just wish, I don't know. I just wish, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like I wish I would have understood. I wish I would have taken a second to reflect. Why do I talk about boys a lot? But again, you're 14. You don't have that. The brain capacity is not always
Right.
there, and
Right.
so. Um, but again, I always felt like I had to be like on my perfect behavior with friends and their parents because I just feel like kids didn't like me, like parents didn't like me. I just feel like I was never good enough. Um, so high school, I finally make some really solid friends, but I'm kind of an asshole. Like I say comments that I don't even know it to myself they're bad or rude or wrong or not, again, uplifting. I was
I did
thankful
that
that,
very same thing the other
yeah.
day. I
Yeah,
did.
okay.
I think it's common. Like, for that, because of the social behaviors are skewed when you grow up as a kid, so, like, I said something, it wasn't even mean, but
Hmm.
I saw as soon as I said it, it made them uncomfortable. I was like, "Oh, shit, you did it again."
Yeah, right.
So, but keep going, sorry.
No, you're fine. No, you're good. But no, I'm glad I'm not alone. But I mean, I found a solid group of friends that thankfully loved me despite all that. And I was particularly close with one girl that we shared a lot of similar. We both had anxiety, and she's still my one of my closest friends to this day. And I'll talk about her, later. But she was able to see through me. She was
Mm,
probably one of the first people outside my family that was really able to see through me and who I really was and why we were so close. But she was just she had dealt with a lot of bullying, a lot of anxiety, and so I think that just made her again a more empathetic person and just was able to read people more than the average, teenager. So I am forever thankful for her, even through months or years that we didn't really talk. She still just loved me like we just talked
right,
yesterday,
yep,
and people like that are rare. When you find them, yeah, hold them close because um, I think there's a reason why those people are the way they are too.
yes, yep,
Um, but throughout high school, yeah, I had cheerleading, but you know, like I remember, I think it was junior year of high school. I think is when the depression symptoms really started to kick in. I think I was always anxious, but the depression was probably there too. It just wasn't as apparent.
sure, yep,
The sophomore, junior is when it became starting to become really apparent. So
okay,
I had my, I guess, first love, for lack of a better term. He was the person that I fell really, really hard for, and um, I remember junior year, like freshman year, I was part of a competitive cheer team. I didn't do it my sophomore year, and then junior year, a girl was moving like midway through the year, so they needed someone, so they asked me, and I remember one of my first thoughts was, I need to talk to my boyfriend about this.
mm,
And people are gonna listen to me like, "What the actual fuck? Like, really?" And I don't care about the opinion, but I think people this is why I want people to understand, like, that's all I knew. I had a boyfriend that, like,
mhm,
loved me, or, like, we were actually, like, as much as the true relationships you can be in when you're a teenager, and he was, like, one of the closest people that I had, and so when I look back and I'm like, "Really?" Like, you can't, like, who gives a fuck about this boy? Like, do whatever the fuck you want. You're a young kid like that, you know? But that's how much I relied on guys,
right,
and it's sad. Um, but I literally actually remember talking to him about it. Like, it wasn't just a thought, like, I actually did talk to him about it, and I was, like, worried about what it would do to our relationship, and it's so cringy talking about that, but it's just, again, a side effect of all the shit that I went through. Like, I needed a guy to feel some sort of love and stability, and, uh, yeah, like, I remember at that point, I know it's gross, maybe not as much to you, but for people listening, and again, it's why I wanna break more of that stigma. Like, this is where I kinda stopped taking care of myself, so I wouldn't shower for, like, 4 or 5 days at a time. Um, and, you know, a couple, like, my close friend knew, like, the one who saw through me, she was able to she was just like, "Oh, she hasn't showered in 4 or 5 days," and my boyfriend found out, and he's like, "Oh my god, that's so disgusting," and to me, I was just like, "Oh, I just haven't done it," but in reality, what I see now is I did that because I was depressed, I didn't wanna take care of myself anymore.
Yeah. It's
It
very
was a side
difficult
effect.
too.
Yeah, and so, the more common way that we see depression in teenagers is like maybe, they stop trying in school or they stop their extracurriculars, they, withdraw. And I didn't do that. Like, I was very I went out with my friends all the time. I was always, I was at practice, like I was with friends, like I was, seemingly like I had a good group. I was seemingly happy. I had this boyfriend, and but I just stopped taking care of myself in these little ways, and just not showering was one of them.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember, uh, so I think, it was junior year, and my boyfriend, he went to the high school across town, and he was a track athlete, and it was like spring, so it was like their track season, and I remember, um, we were good until, like, he just kind of was like, "I don't want to be together during track season," which is code for I don't want to be with you, but I didn't know that at the time. And he didn't say it. He just didn't come out and say it. And he's like, I need to focus on track. Like, I don't want to be together, but I want to be together after. And I was like, okay, like I can wait for that. And I think that stemmed why that even happened in the first place was because, like, a month or so prior, there was like a school dance, and I went with my friends, and I was so desperate to have a boy's attention that I don't know what the fuck they call it, freak dancing? Or the fuck, I don't know, grinding, whatever shit, nasty shit that is, but, like, I remember being so desperate that I wasn't doing that, that I made, like, a guy friend of mine do that with me, like, dance with me, because I just needed some attention.
Mhm.
I needed
Yeah.
somebody to notice me, and I told, like, my boyfriend, of course, he, like, didn't respond well to that. So I think that's why, like, the track season, like, that was just his way of trying to maybe escape from the relationship, but just not being able to, like, say that he doesn't wanna be together.
Yeah.
But again, me, on the other hand, I'm so desperate that I say, "Okay," and then when I noticed him withdrawing, like, I used sex as a way to keep him, and I had never had sex before. I think he was the person that I had first had sex with, and I just feel so sad for her, that girl back then, because sex should be something that both parties want to do in a loving, committed relationship at whatever age that you feel is appropriate. Um, but to me, I brought it up to him because I thought it would make him stay.
Right.
And if someone's, 17, 16 years old and they do that with their boyfriend because they feel ready, then you genuinely feel ready, then that's their decision. But to me, it was a decision of needing somebody, a guy to be there. I needed them to stay. And so, is it the worst thing in the world I had sex with my boyfriend? No. But it's the reasons why behind it that make me sad.
Right. Yeah.
And so, obviously, we had sex a few times, and, like, obviously that didn't work because he went through his track season. I never talked to him. I would tell him I love him, and I would get no responses back. And I remember, like, the day. his like last track meet was supposed to be, and I like texted him and I was like, "Why haven't you talked to me yet?" Like just holding my breath, not living the life that I should be living because I needed a boy. I needed a guy to guide me or be with me, something. And obviously we broke up. It didn't work out and I'm devastated. It is weird because at one point I was like relieved that it happened because I felt like free and we've been arguing, but at the same time I was so devastated that I had lost someone that I loved.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that just brought up a lot of those past feelings of someone I love leaving and not knowing when I'm going to get that again. So I think between that boyfriend and when I got another one was like about 6 months, which is the longest I'd ever been single in my life. And I wish, again, like if these things hadn't happened to me, I would have been able to enjoy just myself and know what it's like to that like it's okay to be alone. Not just to be alone, but you don't need a boyfriend. You don't need that. Like I wish that I was able to enjoy just being myself and living my life to how I wanted to do things. But I truly needed a boy, a guy. I needed it to it was almost like a fix, honestly, for like a drug.
Yeah.
And that's sad and that sucks. And so yeah, it was maybe didn't have a boyfriend for 6 months and I had one again. And um fortunately I was sort of smart enough to go to college where I wanted to go to college. I was fortunate enough to go to college. And I think this is also where I want to talk about my story of like I was fortunate enough to go to college. I was fortunate enough when my mom was with my stepdad, they were able to afford to go to whatever college I wanted to go to. It was my
Mm.
choice, which is such a blessing. And a lot of people don't get to or even have that option. So that's the thing is you look at me, it's like I have a doctorate, I have a bachelor's, and but yeah, I still want to die. And being suicidal is not linear.
Right.
It could be a broad spectrum of people, and I think I'm one of those kind of weird people. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal by any means, but you can have people with seemingly high accomplishments, or at least objective accomplishments. It doesn't like it doesn't mean if you don't have a college degree you're not accomplished, but objectively in the world this is what we view. We see degrees, we see status, and we think that correlates with happiness.
Right.
And I am
Yeah.
not one of those people. Even though I was very fortunate. So that's where I think being depressed and anxious stuck was hard for me to deal with, or even though at the time I didn't realize I was, but looking back, it's hard for me to see that like, God, I was given all this and I was still feeling these really shitty feelings. I had a lot of guilt with that for a long time. Um, but I had another boyfriend. I went off to college, but like I was so sad when I left because we chose to stay together and we thought we were gonna be together all 4 years of college and talked about getting married and I'm just like, fuck. Like I'm glad that I had enough common sense to like go to where I wanted to go to school and do what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
But I wish I didn't feel like I had to have a guy with me to be able to do that. Um, but sophomore year of college, I think, is the start of the really bad depressive symptoms. Um, my first 2 years, I was part of a collegiate team, and
Is you
yeah,
say the sophomore year
of college, yeah.
of college? Is that
hmm
when the suicidal thoughts started?
No, I actually didn't even experience suicidal thoughts until maybe 2021.
Oh,
So
okay.
only I know, which is so it's kind of like my story is a little unique because it's like this only started a few years ago for me. Um, but the depression really became like steadfast. I mean, just full blown. So, I was on my collegiate team. Again, I don't want to say because it's very specific. Everything I've done in
Sure.
my life is very unique. So I want to keep it hidden, but um, very unique. Not a lot of school. It's more apparent now, but a lot of schools at the time, wasn't popular, but it was still an NCAA sport. And I I think it was a combination at the time, sorry, with, like, my dad still in and out. Um, the thing about my dad is, again, he's very manipulative. He wants to appear to other people like he's a really good person and a really good father, and it's quite the opposite. And so my freshman, sophomore year of college, we had this relationship where I felt like I had to talk to him on the phone. So again, my mom being my mom, wanting to keep the peace, nothing happening, no drama, whatever, no one being upset. She just kind of was like, "You should talk to your dad. You should keep a relationship with him." And so I just kind of was like, "Okay." Like I didn't realize at the time I had a choice.
Hmm.
And so even but before I was 18, I could have had a choice. Like there was nothing in the court. Like they never went through court or anything. It just was never given an option to. I don't have to have a relationship with my dad. So to me, it was just normal. Like, okay, I'm going to talk to my dad. But I, always didn't want to. Every time I saw him pop up on my phone, I'm like, fuck, I have to talk to him. Like, I don't want to talk to him because it was never a fruitful conversation.
Right.
It was just pulling teeth to try to tell me, like, me to tell him how I was doing, how school was going, whatever. Um, and so I think just with the stress of that spring semester, sophomore year, I think just the stress sort of took its toll on me. And I started feeling really stressed, really anxious, really depressed, even more so. Um, I I had a big mental block with the sport that I was doing in college, and I couldn't do what I originally was even like recruited for. And I didn't feel like I was part of the team. I wasn't involved in any events throughout of the sport. And I know it seems fake. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep it private. But um, I again started withdrawing even more from people. I didn't know how to like study effectively. I was failing one of my classes, and I withdrew. I wouldn't know how to talk to anyone about this because I never, again, before this point, like I had all these things, but it was never apparent in my head. Like this is what's happening. Like you're experiencing depression. I didn't know. I just thought like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Right.
And
Was your
yeah,
I don't know if I caught this or not. Was your depression debilitating
at the time, um,
during
it's
those
gone in
years?
waves. During those years, no, no.
Okay, it just started to manifest itself.
It started to manifest itself exactly. So yeah, I'm failing one of my classes. I'm not in any of the team events that I need to compete. I just feel very alone. I'm treating people like shit. Like I'm just not doing well. And again, so I also have this boyfriend, surprise, surprise, that I started dating my freshman year. And um I broke up with the boyfriend that I had before I left for college because I met this new guy my freshman year that was seemingly better. And to him and I were the perfect combo because he liked my boyfriend I started dating freshman sophomore year. He liked controlling people. He liked having power over people. And I was this kind of
So
lost girl.
you were ripe for the
Yeah.
picking, weren't you?
I'm right for the picking. Fuck. And so, I start liking this guy, so I dump my other boyfriend, and I'm with this guy, and we were together throughout all of college for 4 years, and I'll talk about that. But so I'm just really struggling. I'm failing my class. I end up failing the class. I have to retake it over the summer, and just feeling like a total failure. Um, But that semester was the longest semester of my life because that's when we're like in the competing part of my sport. And I swear that I still have dreams to this day about being on that team and not being
Oh,
able to
wow.
leave that team. Yeah, to this day, like I am flying to competitions. I am part of the team and I'm like, can't wait for it to be done. Or I literally have dreams of I'm trying to fake being sick or injured so I don't have to go with the team.
Hmm.
And yeah, and so
Was it a bad experience?
It was enjoyable my freshman year, genuinely enjoyable. I happily wanted to come back for a second year, and I was doing pretty well. It was really just that second semester, that spring semester, that it all started to fall apart, become terrible, and feel like every day felt like a week, honestly. Um, and the when I that season finally ended, again, that's that massive relief of that panic gone.
Hmm.
What's interesting, it's sort of ironic, is the school that I went to was a Christian school, a religious school. And, um, I'm not saying I'm not putting anyone at fault, but, just in an environment where you would think people would be a little bit more inviting and welcoming, um, not my experience. And as a whole, the school that I went to, I would recommend it to anyone, but in that within those sports, like, it didn't matter if it was Christian or not. It was just you put a bunch of girls together, like, there's gonna be some potentially poor experiences. I just felt not supported. Like, I never really got asked by anybody, like, "Is anything going on? Is there a reason why, the stuff that you used to be able to do, you can't do now? Like, what
Right.
is going on with this mental block?" Like, no one ever had the conversation with me. I was just trying to survive. Um, so finally, after what felt like eons, the season finally ended. I told the coaches I'm not coming back. And um, I don't know what happened. I think honestly, just this finally being off of that team was such a stress relief because I was able to, that depression turned into this anxiety, perfectionistic driven to not fail for whatever fucking reason. It just sort of manifested that way. So again, I have this lovely boyfriend who wants to naturally control and lead people. And so um, he got me into CrossFit, and he was a coach at the time. And with my previous like cheer gymnastics, like I kind of was naturally a good fit for that type of sport just because it's a lot of similar sort of functional movements, and I picked up on it really quickly. So I had something else to pour that perfectionistic energy into. And because of CrossFit, like it's a lot of obviously it's a lot of lifting, like, how many reps can you do? Like
Right.
how much can you perform and achieve?
Yep.
And that was perfect for me because then I could be better than everybody else. I could do everything. I could do things other people couldn't. I've been doing it for years, and I did it in a matter of a few weeks to a month. Like, and unfortunately, like, it's sad that I thrived off of that, but I did. And so I think I found something that I could put my purpose into. And even though it was unhealthy, I had something that I cared about. So my junior and senior year, it turned into do not fail your classes, get the highest grades that you can so you don't fail your father.
Hmm.
And I don't know why it turned into that because throughout my life, I never felt like I had to. I guess I never felt like I had to. Well, no, I take that back. I just fucking said at the beginning, like I felt like I had to be the good kid. And that kind of got lost in translation throughout my life. And some reason that, junior colleges started back up again. Like, don't fail your father, get all A's so your father will be proud of you.
Right.
And my father never told me these things. He never said like, "Oh, you better get these good grades, otherwise, I'm going to disown you." No, he never told me shit like that. No one in my family ever said those things to me. They were just proud of me for going to college and doing well. I didn't need to get those grades, but it was a self-inflicted need to prove to myself and others that I am worthy and that I am capable. And on top of this boyfriend with the CrossFit, it turned into him controlling because again, he wants to naturally lead. So I eat that up amazingly. I'm like, oh my God, yes, I have someone that I can be with, that I feel sturdy with, that loves me. And it turned into him controlling when I worked out, what I worked out, like how I worked out, like what I did. It turned into him controlling how much I ate and what I ate and how many calories per day. And I look back at that and I don't even feel shameful. I just feel angry that again, like I felt so, I was led. I feel like it was like the blind leading the blind. Like not my boyfriend at the time, but just like, I'm just happily following this dude. I
Right.
just wish I had more common sense to be like, no, this is not normal. This is not healthy. If I had learned boundaries as a kid, if I learned just simple things, I wouldn't have keep making these poor decisions. I wouldn't keep running myself into the ground of stress and worry and panic and perfectionism and needing to be loved when just doing my best was enough. I didn't have to push myself so hard. So the last 2 years, that was all it was about. It was study as hard as I can and be the best I can at CrossFit and eat as little as I can, but look really lean and and prove others wrong. And I didn't have that's the crazy thing. I didn't have anyone to prove wrong. I just felt like
Right.
I had to.
Yep.
So the stress, that's how it was for about a year and a half. And then my last semester, again, I still have dreams about these. The last year of college was so stressful. It was that I think is what finally broke me, honestly. It got to the point where I couldn't work out. I was still controlled what I was eating. I was still eating very limited, probably like a little over 1,000 calories a day with the amount of exercise I was doing. I was really lean, so I, but I was failing in the controlling my anxiety, depression, and so I broke. I was for my major, what I was doing. It required a lot of clinical hours on top of being a student. That's just part of what you need to graduate. And so on top of doing that, maybe 20 to 30 hours a week, I was working 10 to 15 hours a week. And I'm just adding all of these things to try and prove that I'm enough, that I'm doing enough,
Yeah.
that I deserve to be on this earth. And I start cracking. I start having anxiety attacks and had panic attacks. Yeah, but I was having anxiety attacks. And I saw the school counselor on a crisis, and she's, laying it out for me on the whiteboard. And I'm like, that was probably the first time someone was like, well, X equals Y. Like, like
Right.
here is
Right.
all you're doing. And like, I'm like, oh, really? Like I and to me, I felt like a failure that I wasn't doing enough. Like how other people can do similar things and they're okay, it seems like. And here I am crying and I can't get through my work shift. Like I can't handle it. And that's when, again, I didn't totally have a diagnosis of depression yet. And I'm 20, almost, no, I'm 22 at this point. And it was just kind of like, oh, typical college student, putting too much on her plate.
Right.
Um, and I met with a counselor a few times, and she recommended medication for me to help deal with the anxiety. And I was just like, I wanted to feel like I was stronger than medication, and I didn't consider it. Um, I felt like it was weak at the time. Felt like I was weak for needing medication, or it honestly was less so of like religious views. Like, some religions are like, turn to God over medication.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I actually didn't feel like that, but I was just kind of like, no, I'm stronger than that. I don't need help. So I graduate, I have a very high GPA. I My dad was not able to come to my college graduation, which I was very relieved by because I didn't like being around him. I didn't want to be around him, but I did it. And then I met someone else that I started liking, of course, because where I lived and where my boyfriend lived at the time were different parts of California. And I started to finally see the toxic things that my boyfriend was doing and how controlling he was. And now that's, surprise, surprise, not normal. Um, so I finally break it off with him, and I start dating somebody else who has a lot of issues of his own. And again, I like that because now I'm finally the one with not so many problems, or it seems like.
Right. Right.
And so I stay in that relationship for a year, and I keep going this breaking up back and forth bullshit. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is like again, there's these issues with my dad are rearing its ugly head, like these unhealthy patterns of going on and off again with a guy that is not good for we're not good for each other. And so I start my graduate program, and again, I had this perfect. Sorry, let me back up. So that was over the summer. Sorry, the year before I started my graduate program, I finally see a therapist. And I told him everything, kind of like what I'm telling you. And he's like, and the reason I started seeing the therapist was because the boyfriend that I was with for 4 years through college sent me a random email after we had broken up, maybe 2 months or so. And he's like, "Hey, I met this girl, and I've been talking with her, and she's gone through a lot of similar shit that you've gone through, and she has bipolar disorder. I think you should get evaluated for bipolar disorder," thinking he's being so helpful, and that just this smug ass, like, "I'm doing you a favor because I'm a man and I'm telling you what to do." And that broke me. That made me so angry and obsessed with it. Fuck you. I'm gonna go see a therapist, and I'm gonna add on list of potential depression, anxiety. I'm just fucked up at this point. Go see a therapist who I'm actually still with today. And I'll talk about him a little bit too. But um he's like, "I think you've been anxious and depressed since you were a little kid." And that, as equally heartbreaking as it was equally as I don't know, you can probably help me with the word.
Eye-opening.
Yeah,
Rev-
eye-opening.
revelation.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, fuck, this wasn't all my fault.
Right.
And I I was like this for a reason. Throughout multiple stages of my life, there were reasons why I was doing these things. And I thank God for my therapist every day, not literally, but just figuratively, because I have been with that therapist for 8 years now. And that kind of seems like a like a weird bond type thing, but it's just naturally because I've kept the same insurance and he's stayed in that job and we just work well together. So it's not like this needy thing, but
Well, no, it's good to
he
have that, even if
it
it's
is, yeah,
for short term, it's high maintenance, and then as over the long term, it's just maintenance. So
totally. And I feel partially I'm alive because of him, because he's been able to guide me when I was never able to get guidance for myself, because
right.
throughout everything I've been through, I don't open up to people. I don't want to let people in, because in my own little nook and shell is where I'm safest, where nobody can know me. And we all know
Yes.
that very well.
Yes.
And he was, even before my husband, like before my husband and I were even together, like he was the person I told all these things to, and he helped literally guide me through life in a healthy way. Never took advantage of me, just always with open arms and empathy, and anything went.
Right.
And so when those suicidal thoughts started happening a few years ago and I brought those up to him, like, again, just helping me navigate that through my life. Um, so I get that diagnosis. I start on an SSRI, forget which one, but my life has changed. I'm not saying I was cured, but I was able to finally breathe
Right.
and not feel so heavy for the first time in my life when the medications finally started kicking in. And I wasn't so angry anymore, and I wasn't so emotional anymore. Things that I thought were so bad about myself. I was able to live, and I didn't have so much noise all the fucking time. And so it was relatively stable, still had a lot of perfectionistic attitude, especially going to my graduate program. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be valedictorian. Like, I needed to be the best. And um at this point, I start graduate school in 2017. Um, I'm finally not talking to my dad. And what happened was Father's Day in 2016. Again, my stepdad had been involved in my life for
Hmm.
8 years at that point, and
Yep.
he is what a dad should be. He is the definition of a man. He is the definition of sorry, that sounds bad when I say definition of a man,
No,
but
it's
just
not.
how
No.
I know, but just how a person should be, like and so
Right.
he is how a husband should treat his wife or a partner, whatever. And he treats me like his daughter. But even though we're not blood related, he's everything that I wish every person could experience because he is wonderful to my mom and to me. And I think he finally, like when my mom met him, she was able to grow as well as a person. And yeah, to this day, my stepdad is my dad, and he knows that I'm his daughter. And again, objectively, you look at me from the outside, and it's like, oh, she has two loving parents. She has this and that and this. It's
Right.
like, how
Right.
could she be sad and depressed and want to fucking die all the time? Again, I'll get to that. But uh so what happened was Father's Day 2016. I'm with I'm going with my mom and my stepdad to my stepdad's family's house that was close by. I was spending time with them. And because I didn't want to spend time with my dad. Why would I want to spend time with my
Right.
dad when I have this
Right.
stepdad who's fucking awesome? And he I told him like, I don't remember. I just said like, I'm gonna go to this my stepdad's house or family's house, whatever. And he sends me these horrible, horrible manipulative messages of making me feel he made me cry. And that man had not made me cry in a very long time, but he broke me that day. And I'm glad he did because I finally got to see the type of person that he was and the daughter that I didn't need to be to him. I
Right.
didn't need to talk to him. I didn't need to be in his life. I didn't need to be in mine. But I finally realized that day I had a choice. And I wasn't going to take it any longer. But again, my mom being my mom, she saw those text messages. I'm crying. My stepdad's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, who the fuck says that to their daughter?
Right.
Because you didn't get your way. And after I saw my stepdad's family, my mom behind my back texted my dad or called my dad. I don't remember because I was out of it. And was like, fine, we'll meet you for dinner after we come back. And she didn't tell me that. She didn't tell him that she didn't tell me that we're going to go do that. And so I'm so mad. I'm so fucking mad that she did that. But again, that was my mom just trying to be my mom, trying to be the peacekeeper. She didn't know.
Right. Yep.
She didn't know any better. She knows now that she shouldn't have done that. But I mean, that's just was her go-to. And so we go to dinner. I don't say a word to him, maybe less than 5 words the whole time. And, I just suffered through it, and after that, I sent him a text saying, "We're done. That's it. Like, I don't want to be a part of your life anymore. I don't want you being part of mine," and that was it.
Wow.
And, he would keep calling my mom, like, "Why isn't she talking to me? Why isn't she talking to me?" She's like, "She doesn't want to talk to you. She's an adult. She doesn't have to do that." And I didn't realize how much relief I felt. And I wish I had had a choice sooner because I wouldn't have to go through this constant, like, this heaviness, this grief of feeling like I have to have a relationship with this father that's done nothing for me my whole entire life.
Right. Yeah.
So that finally is over with. I'm in grad school. So again, still the perfectionistic, tendencies, but I'm decently better. I'm living. I actually didn't see my therapist that much because I was doing okay. And then, eventually got with my now husband in 2019. And so here's where the kind of PTSD started. So again, I have the anxiety, I have the depression. It's more like I'm realizing more and more with all my sessions with my therapist that why I've been doing these things for, 20 something years at this point. So 2020, I'm in an internship and I'm in my final quarters of school, a couple quarters of school, and I got accepted this really impressive, again, not just tooting my own horn, but it is like an impressive program for soon-to-be graduates for the healthcare field that I'm going into, which again, I'm going to be private about because it's a little bit more, not isolated, but unique. Again, I don't know why. I don't know why. More of a niche. Thank you. And again, I don't know why I keep doing that, but I just keep going to things that are small. But I'm by myself. I live by myself because I'm across the country and I'm getting nightmares about everything that happened when I was a kid. And this has never happened before. This kind of started out of the woodwork. And it keeps happening. It keeps happening. I'm talking with a psychiatrist at this point, and that's when I get the diagnosis of PTSD because uh, along with the nightmares, the anxiety has turned into not just a general anxiety, but like a fear anxiety. Like if I'm anxious and I hear a noise or someone touches me that I wasn't expecting, I go into that. I'm blocking the word at the moment off the top of my head, but I go into that state where I'm back to where I was, and I
Mm.
am scared and I am terrified, and I lash out at something I'm not expecting. So it was just it was so anxious that I started not seeing shadows or figures, but I started like thinking I saw something, and it would scare me, and my heart would race, and I was panicking all the time. And I was in this heightened alert state, which is what defines PTSD versus like just like general anxiety or
Okay.
symptoms of PTSD. So because of the nightmares and my again horrible anxiety where I'm seeing shadows, I don't I if I'm not expecting someone to touch me, I jump, and I feel like I'm jumping out of my skin, and it takes me at least 10 minutes to calm down. Like my heart rate would skyrocket. And yeah, out of fucking kind of nowhere. But that's how I get the PTSD, the diagnosis. And again, just with these added, again, I have anxiety, depression, but then with these added diagnoses of the PTSD and the nightmares, and kind of like what you went through or what I went through, constantly being reminded of that almost every night, you don't, you don't, you turn into a different person,
Right. Yeah.
and you feel helpless and you feel scared. You don't want to go to sleep. Somehow I was able to go to sleep because sleep has always been a comfort for me. Just like going to my room my room alone was helpful, like a coping mechanism. So was sleeping. So I didn't. It's not like I wasn't sleeping, but it's like when I would sleep, I knew I'd have nightmares, but I was just so tired, I didn't give a fuck. So I get nightmares, and they're uncontrolled. I'm having nightmares about my childhood every night. It seems like pretty much it was every night, and I'm crumbling. I am crumbling, and mentally. And then I start binge eating as a mechanism to restricting for so long. My body was in starvation mode for so long that I started binging. And so then it turns into this binge eating disorder, and then PTSD, anxiety, depression, medication after medication after medication. So that's where these last 3 years have sort of just been this clusterfuck.
Right.
And so in 2020, I would say early 2021, I started having the thoughts of, I was having lunch with my parents. They visited me at work, and I had this thought of, I'm never going to see them again. And that scared me. And I never had that before. And I was like, and it scared the fuck out of me. So I called a crisis line for my health insurance. And I'm like, I want to die. Like, I'm panicking. I'm having a panic attack. And I had thoughts of not wanting to be here. And I'm scared. I don't know what this means because I do want to be here. I don't understand. And ever since that day, again, with the nightmares just piling on, it just gets too overwhelming, basically, for a lack of it. It seems like not as bad as it is, but I am drowning. And with my thoughts, I am drowning with the depression, the heaviness, the sadness, the not wanting to, I just don't want to be here and keep dealing with this because I'm getting so tired. And I think it took me 20 plus or at this like 27 plus years to finally crack.
Right. Yeah.
And so I finally crack. And ever since then, it's been this true battle of wanting to be here. So while I have an amazing therapist, psychiatrist, I've been through 3 plus, SSRIs, SNRIs. I just don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm just tired. And I think my body is catching up with my mind, or maybe vice versa. I don't know. But, because with the depression, I respond well to the treatments for a little bit, but then I kind of stop responding, or I get a very, my affect goes down. Like I'm just kind of very neutral.
Right.
And I don't have feelings anymore. And that messes with you, especially when you
Yes,
have
it does.
nightmares.
Yeah.
When you have nightmares, like you're a shell of who you were. And that's when I was like, I can't keep doing this. And so when I really truly wanted to die, like had an active plan, was 2 years ago to the month almost. And I thankfully got enrolled in EMDR. and she was able to help me significantly with my nightmares. I didn't really have them anymore. I still don't really have them anymore, maybe once every couple weeks, but
What'd you call it? EMDR? Is that what?
EMDR. I something. God, I should really know this. I'm in the healthcare field. Um, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy.
That's right. Yeah, I've read about it. Yeah.
And so basically, it's psychotherapy designed to help alleviate distress for people with traumatic memories, which is
Right. Yeah.
what I was going through. And so she was able to also one of those people that helped kind of save my life. She was in my life for a short period of time while I did the EMDR, but she was instrumental in me kind of becoming a person again. But those suicidal thoughts stayed because now that my body, my mind finally cracked under all the weight that I've been dealing with for all these years. I just became so tired. And I know as I'm saying, it doesn't seem like I'm very tired, but I'm exhausted. So I just recently went through what's called TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Okay. How many sessions did you do?
So it's a 6-week treatment,
Okay.
5 days a week. 5 days a week. There's 30. And if you start responding to the treatment, they'll typically add in a week, so about 36. So I did about 34 sessions, and I responded well honestly to the point where I was in remission for my depression.
Okay.
But because again, I've cracked under the weight of the stress and what I had been through for 30 years of my life. I was only in remission for about 3 weeks before the symptoms started to come back. And before the TMS, though, I again was ready to die again. So 2 years ago, I was ready to die. Had EMDR, it was better. Still kind of had those thoughts, but it was improving. And then, again, just living became very exhausting. I had a lot of stress in my life, and I can't really deal with stress that well because I think I've just been so plagued by it that I'm truly fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
So I told my therapist, like, I don't know what to do. It got to the point with my sessions with my therapist, who again I've known for 8 years. Like, I didn't have much to say during the sessions because I was like, what else can I fucking talk about? What else can I
Right.
do?
Yeah.
I'm so done. And I was, the day that my TMS started, I was on the verge of suicide. If I because I had to go to the treatment and then work. If I didn't have to go to work after that appointment, I don't know if I'd be talking to you right now.
Hmm.
And that was hard because I didn't know if the treatment was going to work. I didn't want to go through yet another treatment, yet another type of therapy that I didn't know was going to help me.
Right.
And I was just trying, getting diagnosis after diagnosis after diagnosis because of what my fucking father put me through. And other people in my life that have just failed me. And again, that treatment worked. Even though it was only for a short period of time, it did work, but it helped me to kind of know it is possible for me to get better. And kind of like what you were saying in your video, like with Mark asking you, like, do you have hope? And I mean, I have very little hope, but I still have a little bit. But I think what's hard about being suicidal is I have chronic passive suicidal ideation. I very rarely have the active, but it's hard because on the days that I've wanted to die, there have been things that have happened that people have shown that they've cared or have noticed me that makes me feel like I have a point in this world or a purpose in this world. And so the hope is like, looking more into like psilocybin, ketamine therapy, which I'm, trying to figure out that therapist, but it's like, why am I here? Why don't I just go ahead and do it? Why don't I just die? And I think the TMS helped me to know that I can't get better. There's hope for me, but I'm only 30 and I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I know.
I know you know. And so I tell my therapist, like, yes, I have this a little bit glimmers of hope, but I'm 30 and I'm so done. Like, I don't know if I can keep doing this for even like 3 to 5 years. Like, my husband and I recently found out because of me, like it might be hard for me to get, well, it is going to be hard for me to get pregnant. I don't know if it's impossible, but um so I'm just like, God, well, I shouldn't have a kid. I'm so fucked up. Like, I don't want to have my kid deal with even half of what I dealt with. I don't even want to deal with a little bit of what I dealt with. Like, your child should be better for this world. Not, I don't want them to resent me. And so I don't know what my purpose is here, and I think that's what I'm still trying to grapple with. Um, so again, these things are not talked about, and I also only talk about it with two people. So I saw your video, and I'm like, there's someone out there like me.
Right.
There's someone that in a sad, not sad way, in a like a just a shitty way, somebody gets it, and it's so not like me to reach out to people, but I felt like if anyone gets it, it's you, and just to know that I don't know what is in store for us. I don't know what the fuck we're doing here, but I still feel like maybe I have a purpose on this earth, but I don't know. It's tough because I was just telling my therapist last week when I saw him, like, I want to die all the time. And as much as I love my husband, I love my stepkids, they'll be fine without me if I'm not here. They'll figure it out. Now it's a shitty way of thinking, but honestly, the only thing that's kept me here is I have 4 dogs, and dogs have always been a source of joy for me when I had no joy. And I don't know, dogs for me are, they just, the longest I've ever had joy in my life and bring me happiness, or small bouts of happiness. And so I have one dog who's I call her my soul dog. And obviously dogs love their owners, but sometimes with, certain breeds where they're just more loyal than, not more loyal,
Right.
but just
Yeah.
they stick to you more than other breeds. I have little dachshund, little weenie dog, and she's such a girl's girl, and we got her a couple years ago, and she's always just been a mommy's girl. And so from the day I got her, I'm her person, and she's mine, but I can't leave her. And dogs don't understand. The people can understand eventually, but dogs don't. And I don't want to put her through that. But sometimes I get mad. I saw my therapist, I'm like, I'm fucking mad that I even got her, because now I can't die. And I'm just mad that I even married my husband. Sometimes I'm mad that I have stepkids, that I have more things that I might have to leave behind, and I just want to be by myself and just die and no one have to just think twice.
And you just
So
spoke what most of us feel. No shit. Like,
yeah.
I wish I would have never done that interview. I put myself in a precarious position,
Yeah.
not just to
Yeah.
be ridiculed, but for responsibility that I don't want.
Yeah.
Now I carry not just my own story, but others.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not just responsible for me.
Yeah.
Now I carry a beacon for those that I don't want this responsibility. I don't want this
Yeah.
torch. I don't want the limelight. I don't want anything to do with it.
I don't know. On the day when I started TMS therapy in late February, I wanted to die. I really wanted to die that day. Again, like, I had, but then those little things that come out of the woodworks of like, maybe do people pay attention to me and they do want me here. Like, where I work, there's a cafeteria, and because of my treatments, I hadn't, or no. Oh no, sorry. I skipped the morning of work. I went to the cafeteria for work for lunch, and the woman there that works there, she's like, "Oh, hey, I noticed you weren't here this morning. Like, just want to let you know, like, a couple changes." And I've never talked to her ever. I didn't even know she knew who I was. Like, I had seen her, but we see people all the time and we don't say anything. Like,
Right. Yeah.
why the fuck of all fucking days? Why did she have to say something that fucking day? Fuck. God damn it. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, these fuck. Just things that bring me back. And I was like, oh, I was like, that's really sweet. Like, thank you. Like, and I'm just like, God, like, she knows I exist. Like, I don't want anybody to fucking know that I exist.
Right.
And so, fuck. And then later that same day, I'm talking with a coworker who's she's also a therapist, which is funny and ironic. She knows a little hint of the shit that I deal with, but nothing to this extent. And my coworker, bless her heart, she's one of those people. I'm sure you know those people that are just so fucking nice and angelic.
Mm-hmm.
They're brought on this earth to
I
serve
keep some
other
of those close
people.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she serves people so well. She loves people so well that I envy that I don't have those capabilities. But I had just finished a certification program for something related to my job, and it was like 5 months. And I passed. I did school. I passed the test, whatever. And I didn't tell. Again, I'm very private. I don't tell. I just told people like, hey, I'm doing this program, but I didn't tell anybody that I finished or I passed, whatever. So I don't care. I don't want to tell people. And she somehow found out that I passed and it was done. And she comes into the room where I'm talking to my coworker with a box of cookies. Like, she went out and bought cookies from a bakery for me. And she she just comes in the room and is like, congratulations. Like, I got you cookies. And I immediately start crying as a response. So I'm like, God, I needed that so badly. Like, I don't want it. I don't ask for it. But for some reason, that day she chose to do that on the day I wanted to die. And so it just makes me think, like, if I was really, I don't know if I really was supposed to die or if I really wanted to go through with it. Like, I don't know if those would have happened that day. Maybe. I don't know. But
Well,
shit like that makes me not die.
so somebody in the spiritual world must have thought so. So
I
cookies
think
were
so.
sent.
That's the thing is, like, I went to a Christian school. I'm still a believer in God, but I don't practice religion. I don't agree with aspects of religion, but I do believe that there's something out there. And I think on that day, something went out into the universe that was like, she's in trouble.
Yeah.
She needs to stay here. And so those days, while so fortunate that I have people that care enough to, even some cafeteria worker who didn't have to say anything.
Right.
For that day, she chose to say something. So it makes me question if I am supposed to be here and what my purpose is. And I'm still figuring that out. But
Yeah, you're supposed to be here. So I was, and that's a tough one for me to say, but I do believe it. I do.
yeah.
And I want to believe it. I try to hold on to it. But I was in Arizona going to do this interview out in California, the soft white underbelly. And I had been hiking for 3 days in this one spot. This is flat land. It was, waist high to chest high bushes. But you couldn't see anything because even though it was flat, everything kind of looked the same. And then I'd get 100 yards away from camp and I couldn't find my camp. It was just disappeared. But I'm a hiker, so, I'm marking my territory, looking back, knowing where I'm going. And on the third day, I'm getting ready to leave the next day. And I'm looking out and I'm watching the sunset, same place as I did the other 3 nights. And all of a sudden I realize I'm thankful. This is a privilege to be alive, to be able to feel the pain, to be able to go through the abuse, to be able to everything became worth it.
Yeah.
Now, do I feel that today? Well, no, but I'm reminded of it through conversation, through like, your life is valuable to me. Everybody that I talk to, they're valuable to me now. And of course there's a purpose. You have something that, I can point all your good things. That's an easy one. You got your mom, you got your stepdad, you got your husband, you got 2 stepkids. Like, yeah, people could point it out for me too. It's hard to realize it and then hold on to it because you do have it and you do have the opportunity for life. I don't know how we get there. I don't.
Yeah, because all this shit that I've been through with some people, I'll share little glimpses of my life. So like my therapist friend, like she knows I have anxiety, depression, whatever. But I have a coworker, just like I feel semi comfortable with him. But like for some people, I'll just kind of spit out like, oh yeah, like it's anxiety, it's depression, or it's like a self deprecating joke, like I have an eating disorder, and just like my coworker a couple weeks ago, I told him like I deal with an eating disorder, so it makes XYZ harder for me, and he just gets awkward and uncomfortable. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, you deal with that, and I want that to be. I just wish eventually society gets to a point where we can say tough shit like that, whether it's I want to die or I had this weird thought today that I want to crash my car and die, and I hope I die,
Mm-hmm.
and not met with a uncomfortable, awkward, whether it is awkward or uncomfortable, but just to say, just simple words like that, like just some type of response that's not so like makes us feel like we have to go back in our shell and hide and not say anything.
Right. Yeah.
So am I perfect? No, absolutely not. But like with my stepkids, they're in tough ages. They're they're almost 11 and 12, and they've dealt with hard shit in their lives. And through what I've dealt with, I tried to talk to them just like I didn't have like I wish someone had talked to me when
Mm-hmm.
I was younger at their age. And so that's one of the reasons that I see the light of what I've been through is I can help someone else not feel alone.
Right.
Even if I'm not doing a very good job of handling my own shit, at the very least I can help someone feel less alone. And so, but again, my story is one of privilege. I will admit that. I do not take it for granted. I through all the hardships I've been through, again, I've gone to college, I've gone to graduate school with a doctorate, I have a good job, I have a family, I have kids, I have a husband, I have 4 dogs, I have, we live and we're able to live in California, which is so fucking hard. Not just California, but a lot just living is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Uh so I understand that I have had a lot of privilege. But like you said, it does not negate the fact that people still hurt, people
Yep.
still suffer, people still go through their own shit, people deal with it in different ways. And it's okay if you've had everything handed to you on a silver platter. You're still allowed to not be okay.
Yep. Yep. For
And
sure.
so I figured, again, can I relate to what you've been through? No. Did I ever grow up in a foster system? Did I ever not have clothes or food? No. I had all
Right.
of that and more, but I'm still suffering.
You're still here.
I, I'm still here. I'm
Yeah.
still here. And so if you upload this video, there might be some asshat that says, move on, you're fucking fine. You have all this, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like there's gonna be some, sure. But we have to realize like those people are hurting and just ignore them. And there's a reason why we all have different walks of life.
Right. Yep. You got any suggestions? How about that?
Yeah.
That have helped you in certain situations, or something that you would want to pass along, or something that you wish you would had said to you over that's profound, that has stuck with you.
I think like when I told you my story so many times, I have said, I wish again, like my kid brain, there is someone an older that's going to listen to like, that's of course you feel like that. Like that's okay to feel like that. If you're feeling something, if you're dealing with what you and I deal with, it is valid. It doesn't matter what you've been through. Your feelings are valid. if there are people in your life that you tell that to and they walk away, or um, don't believe you, or they think you're being dramatic or whatever, you don't need them in your life. Choose to, even if it's one person, whether it's a therapist like me, who I my circle is my husband, and my therapist, my husband. If it's one person, if it's an animal, you like, if you have something in your life that brings you joy, that uplifts you, well, no matter what the fuck it is, if it's a chair, a dog, anything, hold on to that. Either there is something to hold on to. What you've been through was not your fault. And it's okay if it takes you 10 years or 30 years to understand that. I'm still going to have to tell myself every day that it's not my fault. But like my sister, for example, thinks I'm being dramatic with what I deal with. And she doesn't know the whole story, but from
Right.
what she has learned in bits and pieces, she has said that she has literally said to me verbatim, there are kids in Africa that are starving,
Yeah.
that are dying. My problems are not real.
Right.
And I don't have a relationship with her. I have a forced relationship because of my niece, but she's not part of my story. And if everyone in your family doesn't believe you, but you have maybe one person in your life, like, just hold on to that. Hold
Yeah,
on to
for sure.
hold on. I think that's my biggest thing. Hold on to those little bits of joy, or someone that cares about you. I talk to my dogs all the time. I tell people that they think I'm probably fucking nuts. But I talk to my dogs and they are my lifeline. And that's
Yeah.
not normal. I don't give a fuck. I love my dogs. They love me. And I'm a crazy dog lady. And they need me and I need them. And they are what get me through the day. So it doesn't have to be just whatever you find joyful, hold on to that. And it's not your fault.
There's something about animals that except for cats, that they're not, they're, like a horse or a donkey or a dog, they're always excited to see you. Not cats. They're
Yeah,
just like,
I
feed
know.
me, pet me, get away from me. But,
Yeah.
like when you have that unconditional, it is an unconditional love that happens between
Mm,
an animal and a not even necessarily a pet owner, but like I have some pets that I visit, and some
mm,
dogs, and they pee themselves every time I'm around. And I'm like, I'm so excited, like that. I feel loved because this dog is peeing herself everywhere because she's so excited because she just wants to play ball. I'm
right.
like, let's get to it,
Yeah.
and that it does bring me joy because I just because I enter into that encouragement with her when I throw a ball, because she goes and
Mm,
gets it and I give her encouragement, and then I'm happy and she does something stupid and I laugh. And so there is a lot of joy in relying on an animal to bring you joy. So it's not abnormal. I don't think that's abnormal.
huh. And, but again, it's a lifelong of realizing, like, it makes sense of the ways that I responded to the shit that I've been through. So it's
Right.
constantly having grace with myself, which I am terrible at. But just in our situation, just hold on to those little bits of joy, or something that just doesn't, or simply just doesn't make you feel like shit. I mean,
Yeah.
something, find one thing that helps keep you going. For me, that's, yes, I have so many things around me, but it's my dogs that keep me going.
All right. Well, thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the flip side.
Sounds good. Maybe one day on the